On today's show, we've got Dimes Bill DiFilippo to talk all about Darius Garland. He's got some passing numbers. Donovan Mitchell's out here defending Darius Garland aggressively, vociferously. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning bet. That is $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm Chris Manning. We have Bill DiFilippo from Dime on UPROXX with us today. Bill, it's good to have you back, my friend. And despite the fact you're wearing a Penn State shirt, we can't talk about Lamar Stevens, but we're going to talk about Darius Garland.
So part of that is unfortunate, and it's the unfortunate part is certainly not that I'm back here with you. It's actually very fortunate I'm here with you and not with that damn Evan isn't here to kill the vibe. He just kills you every time. To kill the vibe with his better hairline than I have. But all seriousness, I am glad to be here. I appreciate. As always, getting a chance to chop it up with you on the podcast. And how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Got to tell you, Bill, just going to say, hairline's overrated. Shave the head, Derek White, me, Alex Caruso.
Top, yeah. Listen,
cut it off. Jalen Suggs, you're not listening to this. Shave your head. Shave your head.
I like how you went with a lot of people who, none of whom were Michael Jordan.
Look, I'm not, we all aspire to that. I understand that. But more pragmatically, and for our mutual friends who I hope who listen to this, he will care more about Derek White than Michael Jordan because he is who he is.
Sure,
he is who he is. All right, Darius Garland. We're off the rails already, Bill, and I love that for us. So the Cavs beat the Wizards on Sunday. We have the starter Donovan Mitchell. Bill very aggressively defended Darius Garland in a way that I have a lot of thoughts just about, number one, when you start a quote with "I'm on social media," you're just reading random angry people on X's or Twitter thoughts, which is ultimately just a wild thing to get. That's not real life, so maybe we shouldn't care about it as much. But I found it fascinating, Bill, that he went to bat for Darius in a way that you've talked to Darius, I've talked to Darius. He is not someone who will really defend himself in this way. He will not speak up for himself. He just kind of lets things be. Mitchell going to bat for him like this, I found really, really fascinating. What did you make of everything Donovan said?
Well, first, if you don't mind, I will read the quotes that Donovan gave to Chris.
No
Peter
swears. We're a program. We're a kid-friendly program here at Locked On Cavs, Bill.
I can agree to that stipulation, begrudgingly, but I will. I'm on social media, and I feel like people aren't giving him the benefit of the doubt. I want to speak on that because I think it's bull. Word I won't say for Chris's sake. At the end of the day, he is a kid that has proven himself not only to the Cleveland fan base, but this league as well. They're ready to rag on a kid for what? One half of a season? I think that's BS. I've been wanting to say that. He's continuing to find his way. It's been 2 months, and he's slowly getting back to it. At the end of the day, he is going to be there for us, understanding that come playoffs, come whenever we need him. He knows that. He's continuing to build. We have a lot of confidence. We have all the confidence in the world in him. A lot of stuff like that. And the thing that stuck out to me, Chris, and it's always the thing that sticks out to me when you have something like this, is that what's the thing that high school basketball coaches say? If I coach you hard, it's because I believe in you. If I don't coach you at all, it's because I don't. And getting coached hard, getting tough love, all those sorts of things suck. But kind of being just set adrift, not coached hard, not loved by someone, not supported by someone, that speaks volumes. And it speaks volumes to me that on a night where Darius had a nice game, he gets off to a bit of a slow start, plays a little bit better down the stretch. Obviously, all the caveats about single game plus minus go here, but Darius, the Cavs were plus 22 in the 33 minutes Darius was on the floor, best on the team. it really says a lot to me about, one, how much Donovan believes in him. Two, the fact that it just happened this, you are around the team exponentially more frequently than I am, as I live in Columbus, Ohio, and you live in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
My guess is this really does seem like it just came out, like it was just a thought that Donovan had, that maybe he saw something on Twitter or Instagram or something and he felt compelled to do it. And three, there's just the general fact that he felt compelled to do it because he's not doing this, I would assume, unless he truly believed that if the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to compete to win the Eastern Conference and therefore compete to win an NBA championship, it's going to take the very best of Darius Garland. And and I don't think, like, I would have to assume that Donovan believes in that. And as a result, this is one of the ways, this is the most public way he can show that he believes in this guy and understands his importance to this entire Cavalier ecosystem.
And on top of that, Bill, I think it's kind of an old school like way of delivering this message. Like, this is like a lot of guys now, you league wide, we don't get access or like quotes like this as much. We just don't. Like, guys don't say as much stuff this aggressively anymore. This is like something LeBron would have done, where he would have like, okay, it's like, here's the biggest person in the market, in this case being Chris Fedor, and saying, I'm going to tell you, you're on the road with us, so I'm going to give you this thing, and I'm going to defend my backcourt mate. Just like go out of my way to do it. And everything you said, I think, is true. And on top of that, it is just like, I think Donovan being a leader in some ways with Darius. Because, like, going back to last year and even this year, this team sometimes doesn't always feel like it has like a leader, and Darius, I think, is kind of the guy where he's not going to speak up in that way. I think internally he does more than he does via the media, because just media stuff's not very fun, and just like certain guys don't like it, and that's fine. Donovan being the one who's just like, no, like, this is our guy. There's something about that, and also I think, you know, what his future looks like, Bill, is obviously just an open question, but I think it also tells you that, at least in some way, that Donovan is grounded in what is going on here, that he's invested in it in some way beyond just like, I want to win. There is like, you don't say something like this, I think, unless you have some kind of connection with everything going on around you.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very... it's not a one-to-one comparison. It's not an easy comparison. But like, anyone who's listening to this podcast is going to remember how LeBron kind of carried himself during the Isaiah Thomas days in Cleveland. When you don't have a guy's back, when you don't support a guy, when you think it would be in the best interest of everyone for that guy to maybe not be around, or for you to not be paired like that, because like, it goes both ways, right? Like, if Donovan wanted, he could coast to the end of this regular season. He could get to the day after the Cavs are eliminated from the playoffs or win the championship. I would guess probably the former. And then he could say, all right, you know what? I've given you guys 2 really great years. You guys are positioned well. How about you trade me right now? And for all we know, maybe that happens. Who knows what happens down the road? But it says a lot about Donovan. It says a lot about Darius, and it says a lot, again, about this team that has been built up, that right now in this moment, after a win, that's the other thing. This happened after a win. This didn't happen after a loss where like he clearly needed to make sure Darius continuing to be built up. He did this after a win where, again, Darius has the ball in his hands a good amount down the stretch. There were a couple of moments later in the game, you know, there was the one that sticks out. He gets trapped at midcourt. Shamet takes the ball away from him, where it like looks sloppy. He gets off to a slow start, but he also was kind of the spark behind that run that they had when Jordan Poole had his first good game in 7.5 months, and like helped Washington get back into this basketball game. So it's fascinating. There's only so much that we could do reading into it. Only Donovan knows what went through his mind, but it's always nice to see that someone has this level of buy-in in their team and in their teammates. And it's a thing we'll talk about later on this pod, but like, if the Cavs are going to compete for things, Darius has to be Darius. And He's hasn't been that all season for one reason or another. He started to show signs recently of looking like Darius. But Donovan's going out of his way to make sure that he knows we are going to have your back. We need you to be the guy that you are capable of being, that we have seen you to be. Go out there and be that guy. You are going to have the support of every single person in this locker room.
This is a good transition. After this break, we're going to get into Garland's role in the offense, because I think it could be better. And I think even if you're the biggest Darius defender, if you're the biggest Darius skeptic right now, I think a better functioning role for Darius on offense would make a lot of sense. We'll get into what that could look like after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drivers and great escapes. It has class exclusive Google built-in, your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3 HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, which has room for up to 8, and expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability. Take the Nissan Rogue and Nissan Pathfinder or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop now at nissanusa.com. We're back here on Locked On Cavs. I want to tell you, too, that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So, Bill, Darius Garland's role in the offense to me is, it's not my number one thing I'm watching the rest of the way, but it's number 2, or it's 1A behind what Evan Mobley's up to. The place I start is that I think sometimes Darius Garland might be running just straight up too much high pick and roll, and that's like the only thing it feels like he's doing on offense a lot of the time. And to me, structurally, it just doesn't make sense when you think about how they played with Mitchell as the lead guy, the lead creator for others when Garland was out, and just what I think Garland's capable of, and B, what propelled this team to success while Garland was out. I think Garland can't just, he could never have Bill sustained what made him an all-star that one year. That was never going to scale up to the highest levels in the NBA. Trying to make that happen to some degree now, to me, just it feels like a mistake to use Garland in that way, but maybe he wants to play that way. I don't know what the answer exactly is as to why, but I think more versatility in what Garland's doing is needed here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly agree with that. I mean, Darius is, while we were kind of in that little break there, it was something I went to look at over the last couple of seasons. Back in 2021, 2022, Darius was taking about a little under 10 field goal attempts per game after 3 or more dribbles. 3 to 6 dribbles, he was taking about 4.3 field goals attempt per game, 7 plus dribbles, 5.5 field goals attempt per game. 2022-23, that number was 9.9 field goal attempts per game, 3 to 6 dribbles, 4.4, 7 plus dribbles, 5.5 attempts per game. This year, that number has dropped down to about 9 field goal attempts per game. So not a big drop, but it's still a little bit of that I bad at math. I went to Penn State. That number is down to 8 field goal attempts per game after 3 or more dribbles. So one of kind of the bedrocks of Darius's game, something that has been one of the bedrocks of Darius's game, is how good he is when the ball is in his hands. He kind of slow things down a little bit. He can survey the floor. He can take pull-up jumpers, pull-up threes, a little runner inside the three-point line, and kind of do things on his own. And that doesn't necessarily mesh with what worked really well for the Cavs during that stretch where they went 15-4 without him. And, they were getting into half court. They were really letting it fly, getting good looks from three during just that stretch when when Darius was out. It certainly helped. I actually went through these numbers and I got a chuckle out of this. The Cavs during that stretch when he was out were getting offensive rebounds on 31.8% of their misses, which was third in the league, and 75.2% of potential defensive rebounds they were getting, which is first in the league, because Tristan Thompson was still playing. So it's very funny to just look at like what worked for the Cavs during that period and how that doesn't necessarily mesh with what Darius has always done well. And now there's just a bit of an adjustment period with Darius being back, with Mobley being back from injury, and the Cavs trying to figure out, okay, how do we take some of the principles of what worked really well from us during that stretch, and how do we still apply it to what we're doing now while understanding that, okay, maybe that doesn't necessarily fit what Darius's game has always been.
I think even on top of that, Bill, the other thing that I kind of think Darius Garland needs to. This is like one of those pivot points in the career to some degree. It's not like I will be the first to tell you this has had to have been the weirdest year for him, considering he had to eat food out of a blender in Paris and had his face busted up. All that stuff is just more than valid and more than bizarre for him, and has to just be a real just bummer in terms of him feeling okay and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. On top of that, though, you guys just don't get to stay one version of themselves unless you're LeBron or Giannis or Nikola Jokic. Then you are the system. Donovan Mitchell is, I think, obviously a tier maybe below those guys, but he's very, very good and is the system on this team. Kind of is on Darius, I think, to adapt to some degree and fit in some of this. And with the numbers about passing, which are bonkers, and the catch and shoot stuff, all of that stuff, kind of just need it's kind of just time to be okay, I got to do something a little bit different. The other part of it too is there's not a great answer to this. It's kind of unknowable, but I've also wondered okay, if you had a different coach, you had a different philosophy, would that bring something different out of this, or is this just the way he plays? It's a chicken or the egg question to me, as far as kind of processing some of that.
Yeah, and everyone who watches the Cavs understand that there was a pretty marked difference. Once Darius went out, and at that point it's Donovan, it's Jarrett Allen, and then we're going to have some Max Strus here, some Karis LeVert here, some Sam Merrill here, some Dean Wade here. Should surround
Sam
those
Merrill
guys.
Should just play, by the way. I'm Merrill pilled. I've just been Merrill pilled.
Yeah, and they were just able to put a ton of shooting, a ton of guys who know how to play, a ton of guys who are really comfortable being role players. And there's just always going to be something to that. When you put Donovan, Darius, Evan, and Jarrett out there, I'm obviously not saying that any of them are bad, any of them are bad fits with one another. That the lineup numbers show that they when you put all four of them out there, good things tend to happen. But when you surround guys with role players who are really comfortable in their role, and it's something that I think getting Strus has really helped this year, kind of a macro thing, a guy who, I don't know, there are a few guys in the NBA who understand their job better than Max Strus, and I think that's something that benefits everyone. But you mentioned the passing numbers, and when we talked about, me coming on, talking about Darius a little bit with you, one thing I wanted to dive into was that fact that they just played differently. They played a lot faster in the half court when Darius wasn't out there. And it was, again, Donovan, Jarrett, and role players, shooters, whatever you want to say about these other guys. So from the start of the season to December 14th, Cavs go 13-12, and that was when Darius played before he got hurt. The team made 277.8 passes per game, which was 17th in the NBA. The NBA has the stat called assist points created. How many points are you scoring off of assists? The Cavs scored 61.8 per game, which is 27th in the NBA. They were not a team that really relied on getting the ball. One guy gets the ball, gets it to somebody else, which is a bit surprising because Donovan is, he's not the second coming of Magic Johnson or anything, but he's a comfortable passer. Darius is comfortable passing the ball. Guys like Levert and Strus are all these sorts of things. That period from 12/15 to December 15th to January 30th, when Darius was not there, Cavs go 15-4. One thing that happened was the team jacked up the portion of their shots that were threes. It was 38% of their shots were threes. Before Darius got hurt, 46.1% of their shots once Darius was out there. Obviously, you're putting a little more shooting in there, a little more catch and shoot, comfort, whatever. Team went from 34.5% on threes, 37.2% on threes, while substantially increasing the portion of threes that they took. Passes made per game during that stretch, 312.2, which was the most in the NBA. Assist points created, 76.8, which was fourth most in the NBA. So they basically changed up where their shots were coming from and how they were getting them when Darius was not there. Mm-hmm. You then look at the stretch from January 31st to yesterday. They've been 9-3 in that stretch. About 41.1% of their shots have been threes, about the same percentage in terms of efficiency. 295.2 passes made per game, which is 8th in the league. 75.8 assist points created per game, which is 4th in the league. So what they did was they radically overhauled how they played while Darius was out. When Darius came back, they generally have kept that way of playing, even though that's not really a thing that Darius has done in his career. And I think when you look at it that way, Chris, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can push back against this, it's like, how is he not going to struggle a little bit getting used to this new way that the Cavs are trying to play on the offensive end of the floor?
That's a good tease. After this, I'm going to tell you why, Bill, I think they should probably just play more like they did when Darius was out and figure out how to make it work. We'll talk about that up next. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp, sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to tell you how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking the same thing this week. I got to tell you, that's probably not the case with what I'm about to say. This is really just for Bill. Really excited about Oscar Bob signing a contract extension at the Manchester City Football Club. And I'm also perpetually just worried that I might, as a person of Norwegian heritage, I am perpetually living in fear that I may never get to see Erling Haaland, Martin Odegaard, and Oscar Bob, and Sander Berge, and a bunch of the other quality European players, Christopher Ayer, play in a big tournament. I'm stressed out about this. Cavs-wise, stressed about Darius Garland, which is why we're doing this episode with Bill, but I'm really preoccupied with Norwegian international football right now. A little concerned. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. So, Bill, everything you're outlining with the shooting numbers and everything, to me, it's even if you hadn't looked at the numbers or like you hadn't presented them, that to me is how it describes how they have played since everything has kind of come back. Particularly since the All-Star break, they're just not taking as many threes, and sometimes those things can go up and down. But they've had 3 games in a row where they were below the number of threes they took in most of the games while Darius was out, and even when Darius started to come back. Very clearly to me, 3-point volume, changing where they got their shots, changing how they wanted to play, playing faster and more intentionally in the half court made this team better. It made this team more effective. It made this team a scarier proposition as far as building it out within the Eastern Conference. It put them on the inside track to have the number 2 seed in the conference and maybe, just maybe, exercise some playoff demons. I think reverting back to that to some version of your old self would not actually be a good thing. And if I'm looking at who is kind of the fulcrum for figuring that out, it is Darius. Like, it is ultimately Darius because he has the ball in his hands a lot. He plays one specific way a lot of the time. And he's the one you'd want to adapt. There's some other stuff on the fringes you can make. Like, I just think Isaac Okoro needs to play more than 18 minutes. I think maybe you just got to play Sam Merrill some nights where you need some juice. Particularly if you play Boston and get in shootouts, you might just need to trust Sam Merrill to be able to, like, hold up against Derek White on a switch or something. But I think this starts with Darius, and Darius being part of the solution to just playing a certain way. Now, to his credit, a lot of the games he's been like 50% of his shots are from 3. That's a big jump from where he was at, but it has to continue, and I think there's still more to be figured out here in a way that I don't know where it's going to go, but I think a lot of this does start with Darius the rest of the way, Bill.
Yeah, it's interesting because it starts with Darius, and 1A is Evan Mobley, and the fact that Evan Mobley has been playing some of if not the best basketball of his career ever since he came. Go ahead, Chris.
He had a finish. It's the Wizards, so it's Rashawn Holmes, respectable and green. We love the Mac on this show. Evan Mobley had a finish with his left hand in that game that I was like, I didn't know you could do this, and he's done. There's been a lot of that, and then the defense is starting to ramp back up to where his timing is back. The Evan Mobley leap might be happening. Like I am eagerly awaiting to see where he goes. But like, I think the difference is Darius, it has felt like he hasn't played at his best and isn't playing as crisp as you would like. Evan Mobley is playing at a level where you're just like, oh, this is contributing in a real way.
Yeah, and it's what makes it so interesting that when JB staggers his lineup, because he has an unbelievable luxury of he can always have one all-star caliber guard, one all-star caliber big man, and then just a collection of, again, guys who understand what their role is out alongside them. And so far this season, he's liked going Garland and Mobley Garland and Mobley are the pair, Mitchell and Allen are the pair. When Garland and Mobley are on the floor, the Cavs are putting up 118.1 points per 100 possessions, allowing 106.4 points per 100 possessions, and that differential of 11.7 points per 100 possessions, the 96th percentile in the NBA according to Queen of the Glass. For Mitchell and Allen, much larger sample size, 120.6 points scored, 107.6 points allowed, differential of 13 points, 97th percentile according to Queen of the Glass. Well, they're out there with Karis LeVert, with Isaac Okoro, Georges Niang, Max Strus, Dean Wade, all these sorts of guys. And I think it's good for Darius to be in those situations, where he's able to get into a rhythm without Donovan on the floor, because that's how you're going to get the best out of Darius Garland. You're going to put the basketball in his hand. You're going to tell him, all right, go out there and be Darius. Do the stuff that works well. Now, there is then the situation where if the Cavs are in a close basketball game, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are going to be on the basketball floor together. And in all likelihood, the ball is going to be in Donovan's hands. And it's something that's going to take a little bit of getting used to for him. Catch and shoot threes are going to be a really important part of his game. I know Donovan hasn't played in all of these games, but over his last 5 games, Darius is shooting 35.3% on catch and shoot, taking about 3.4 per game. Before that, it was 31.6% on catch and shoot threes, 2.1 of those per game. And perhaps unsurprisingly, his pull-up 3 numbers during that same stretch have also jumped up by about 10 percentage points. So it's just getting chances for him to see the basketball go into the hoop, get into a bit of a rhythm. You know, there was something that Mitchell mentioned, finding his way, bringing him along slowly. We have confidence in him, get back to his form, all these things. And able to do that, if he is able to take advantage of those moments where he and Donovan are not on the floor together, and then carry that momentum into the situations where he and Donovan are on the floor together, that's going to ultimately be like potentially the sort of thing that could be either the Cavs get unlucky, they have to play the Sixers in the first round, Joel Embiid's back, oh God, the Cavs are losing in 6 games, existential crisis, or the Cavs get somebody else in the first round, they're humming on all cylinders, they get past that first round matchup, they exercise some demons against the Knicks, or they're able to beat the Bucks, a Bucks team that just doesn't believe in the concept of depth. Next thing you know, the Cleveland Cavaliers are in the conference finals.
But we'll end on this question. Can this happen? Well, let me rephrase this. Do you, based on what we've seen in the last couple of games, and at least like box score wise, to bring this full circle, I think Garland has looked better, and I think some of what there's some truth in what Mitchell said. Do you feel like Garland is trending in the right direction? Like, considering everything that this year's been for him, do you feel like there is a world where this can be like the best version of Garland when he needs to be the best version of Garland that actually matters for the team?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely do think that. I mean, over his last 5 games, not a very big sample, obviously, he is tied for 6th in the NBA in you take every player over their last 5 games. 5 players have registered more assists over their last 5 games than Darius has. He's had something like 47. Only guys ahead of him are Tyus Jones, Nikola Jokic, Tyrese Halliburton, Domantas Sabonis, and Luka Doncic. He's shooting about 39.5% from 47% from the field. If I looked you in the eyes at the start of this last 5-game stretch, where it must be said, they've gone 2-3 over that stretch, even though it does date back to before the All-Star game. And I say, Darius,
and Mitchell missed 2 of those games. It's worth noting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say, Darius is going to be one of the best guys of the league at setting his teammates up. He's going to be hitting 39% of his threes, 39.5% of his threes. He's going to be shooting 47% from the field, which he has never done over the course of a full season. This year, he's shooting 49.6% from the field. So he is having his best season from the field overall, in large part because, again, he's been really good from inside the 2-point line. You go, all right, yeah, Darius is on his way back. Darius is starting to be the guy that the Cavs need him to be. And if he could continue to just build on that, I think the assist thing is big. Because Darius is, at the end of the day, he's wired like a point guard. And, he's not like Ricky Rubio levels of just genius feel for the game, prodigious in being able to know exactly who to get the ball, where, but like all those sorts of things. He's still a guy who over the last couple of years has been one of the best players in the league at setting his teammates up. And this year that just hasn't happened as much, in large part because of Donovan. In large part because while he was out, Donovan just that mantle and the team had a ton of success. But if he could start getting into that rhythm of going like, all right, Evan's going to get the ball here. Okay, Max is going to get the ball here. Okay, Karras is going to get the ball here. All right, Donovan's doing something there. I'm going to get him the ball. And he could build his confidence up that way. I think that will beget him really finding his shot again. Going from being 34% from 3 on the season, which is far below his career average, to maybe getting up to about 37% from 3. And you put all that stuff together, and all of a sudden, we're going into the playoffs. It's April, and this podcast looks silly because Darius Garland looks like Darius Garland again.
Bill, you're on this podcast, so it could never look silly. That's what I would say to
that. That actually makes it look worse.
Yeah. It's okay. You did this instead of Locked On Suns or Locked On Hawks. So you know what? It's a dub for me personally. We're gonna end there. Love you, Brad. Love you, Brendan. We're gonna end it there. I'm Chris Manning. That has been Bill DiFilippo. You can check out Bill at Dime. He has a blog in particular. He talked to Tyrese Halliburton about Chad Gable and other things, and something I very enjoyed at All-Star Weekend. But he also has a post coming up, if it's not out already, about the 3 most important players for the second half of the year, which is the origin of Bill coming on to talk about this. So check out all that and all the great stuff they do over at Dime. Until tomorrow when Evan and I are going to recap Cavs Mavs. It's been Locked On Cavs. Enjoy the rest of your day.